it's your friendly neighborhood potato witch. Welcome to the show. Have you ever wanted to run your own school? No? Oh. Okay then. Well, how about running your own school in a fantasy world where you train up future heroes? Ah, now we're talking. That's much more appealing, right? So that's pretty much a nice basic description of Valthirian Arc Hero School Story. It was developed by Agate, an Indonesian game dev company, and published by pqube Games in 2018. Valthirian Arc Hero School Story is actually the third Valthirian Arc game, and I'm willing to bet you've probably never heard of the series before now. Heck, I didn't even know it was part of a series until I began researching for this video. Best as I can find out, the first two games were web games that relied on Flash, which makes them kinda tough to play these days. Releasing the game for Steam, PS4, and Switch really opened up accessibility to this fantasy RPG/management game, and I'm glad of that because I had a pretty good time playing it, albeit with a few caveats. Valthirian Arc Hero School Story is set in the land of Valthiria, 5 different queendoms that operate under the auspices of a High Queen. The High Queen's husband used to run Valthiria's Hero Academy, but he's retiring and setting you up in his place. You play as the new nameless principal. No, seriously, you don't get to name yourself, and you're always just referred to as principal. And your first job is to name the academy. Ion originally called it just Valthiria Academy, and to design its crest. I went for something cool, kinda a stylized wolf head against a dark background, but hey, there is nothing stopping you from having the crest be a bunny head above 2 crossed carrots. As principal, it's your job to make the academy great once more, to provide loyal heroes that can make a queendom proud, and to convince them it's a bad idea to throw rocks at dragons. What the hell were you even thinking? This is where the management sim aspects come in, unsurprisingly. While you're not exactly sorting out class schedules for individual students, you are in charge of deciding what sort of facilities the academy will have and sending students out on various missions. Facilities are really important to the academy because nearly all of them provide some sort of bonus to either the academy's stats or your students' stats. Classrooms will increase the amount of experience points students can gain, libraries give you better item drop rates, certain statues can reduce the damage you take or let you deal more damage. Definitely handy when you're training students to hold their own against an onslaught of monsters. Some buildings will bring a steady supply of money into your school's coffers, which is excellent because running a hero school ain't cheap. It costs money to build and upgrade your facilities, for instance, and when students go out on missions, it's a good idea to give them good equipment. The school has an armory where you can craft weapons and accessories from resources you find, but early on, you don't really have a whole lot of options. However, there's a traveling trader who will drop by sometimes, selling equipment or supplies, or recipes so you can make better equipment through the armory. Other buildings will give your school more fame, and enough fame will let your academy increase in rank, which gives you options for new facilities or upgraded versions of previous facilities. It can be a bit of a balancing act sometimes, but it's absolutely worth getting what you can and keeping it as upgraded as you're able. Dorms are especially important, as each new dorm building you add will increase the number of students you can train by 4. Also, all the dorms are haunted. Look, I don't make the rules. Some facilities are required to gain different job classes for your students, too. See, all students enter the academy as apprentices who don't specialize in any particular skill or trait. Even if they never go beyond being an apprentice, though, all of the students will have stats, and pretty much all of them will have one stat that's far more advanced than the others. This is where job classes come in. When a student reaches level 10, they can be promoted to a new job class if you have both the facilities to train that job and an appropriate mentor. You get the right things in place, and your students with a strong physical stat can become knights, or students with high intelligence can become mages. It takes advantage of natural skills and inclinations, and I like that. Students have their talents before they can specialize, rather than gaining them only after you decide to promote one of them to this or that job class. Each job class comes with its own skill set too, though not every student will be able to take full advantage of a promotion. You see, with each rank your academy gets, the student level cap will also rise. You start with students only being able to hit level 10, and sure, you can promote them to a job class at that point, but if you do, you'll miss out on getting the apprentice skill that's only available at level 15. Third rank job classes, such as Paladin or Medica, will have skills that can only be gained at level 25, so it's really only your students with a level cap of 25 or higher that will be able to take full advantage of that. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from promoting students that can't learn all of the skills of their fancy new upgrades, but it is something to consider while playing. When students get promoted, they go back to level 1, with worse stats than, say, a level 20 apprentice, but much better stats than a level 1 apprentice, and even more opportunity to increase them further. Following that, it takes more experience to raise their level than it does for a similar level apprentice. More work, but more strength. And for large chunks of the game, gaining experience really isn't that tough. You may be wondering at this point if Valthirian Arc has any sort of, story to it. And yes, it does, although it's fed to you in drips and drabs as you go. Not too long after you become principal of your esteemed hero training academy, the High Queen dies, leaving a power vacuum across the land of Valthiria. The High Queen does have a daughter, who technically is now heir to the throne, but she went a wandering some years ago, and nobody's quite sure where she is. It's your job to find her and bring her home so that she can take her place as the next High Queen, while also keeping her safe from the Wicker cultists, who seem bent on reviving the enigmatic Wicker princess to rule instead. Admittedly, the political intrigue of this is often undercut by the fact that you can go many in-game years before progressing to the next story beat. Power vacuum? Desperate need to find a missing heir? Nah, I'ma just spend 3 years training up students for money and prestige. I'll get to it when I get to it. A lot of games with in-game calendars run into this problem, where you need to seriously suspend your disbelief in order to make the gameplay mesh with the story. Valthirian Arc has an in-game calendar to determine school terms, as every 6 months there's a graduation ceremony for students who you deem to have reached their full potential. Each semester must have at least one graduate, and any student can graduate once they hit level 10, regardless of job class. The school gets more money and fame the more students graduate, and each term there's a notice that gets sent out offering bonuses for graduating students with certain job classes. There's also a bonus for students who graduate at their max level. Seems pretty straightforward, and it makes sense with that whole running a school thing. But that same calendar means you might be taking in-game years to fulfill certain story requirements, especially if you've encountered a difficult mission and need to send your students on lots of other missions to build their strength and levels first. It's not a big deal, because the game doesn't really punish you for taking too long to accomplish anything, but it is a bit of a disconnect between story and gameplay, and when you look at both sides at the same time, it can come across as a wee bit silly. So, I mentioned missions earlier, which are the primary way that students in your esteemed academy will gain experience. There are 2 types of missions. The first, and most obvious, is when a group of students will embark on a bit of an adventure, controlled by the player, as they hack and slash their way through an area while looking for a certain item, or to rescue a kidnapped villager, stuff like that. These are the missions I enjoy most, honestly, since I actually get to do something, and I'm not just sitting back and watching time pass. You can switch between controlling any of the students in the party to take advantage of their specific skills or attacks as needed, and it plays out like a simple but fun action-adventure game. The second type of mission is an errand, which still involves sending a party of students on a quest, but you don't control them at all. You just wait for enough time to pass before they return, at which point you find out if they were successful or not. A piece of advice here? Don't send all your parties away on errands. You will literally just be sitting there, unable to really do much with the game, idling until many in-game weeks have passed and you can actually start having fun again. Valthirian Arc can work as an idle game, technically, but it's boring as hell to do it that way, especially on a console. Please, learn from my mistakes. So, while errands let you send off parties to gain experience while you're busy doing other stuff, all the regular player-controlled missions are still the best. Partly because errands are an all-or-nothing deal, you either succeed and gain experience and money, or you fail and gain nothing. Regular missions, though, you're nearly always fighting your way through a bunch of monsters to reach the mission's goal, and each monster killed will mean experience for the students in that party. Even if you fail the mission in the end, you'll still keep all the experience and items you gained up to the point of failure. And thank all the gods for that, because there are times in this game where you can easily run out of good missions to do, but the only available story-based missions prove too difficult for any of your current parties to beat. I can and did repeatedly throw my students at missions that were too hard for them, gaining plenty of experience along the way, because the alternative was just sitting and doing nothing for hours on end while students soaked up tiny bits of ambient experience from being in the school itself. Sadly, it was way more efficient to have everyone die over and over and over and over again than keep them comfortably safe and alive. Oof, now isn't that some commentary? That's one of my biggest complaints about the game when I get right down to it. There are certain points in the game where the repeatable missions offer far too little experience to be worth doing, but the missions that actually let me progress are too hard to win without my just fight things until you die then do it again strategy. A better balance is needed, or a greater variety of repeatable missions, or just something that would make it so I didn't have to suffer defeat after defeat in order to eventually get strong enough to win. That's the sort of thing that could cause a lot of players to quit, and hell, it even made me wonder a few times if it was worth pushing onwards and continuing to try. There's only so many times a person is willing to hurl themselves at a brick wall before they give up, and that's understandable. The students, though, I'm not sure if their names and appearances are randomly generated or not, but wow, some of these people. Their appearance is fine, they're just cute anime-style models, but it's the names that really get to me. You've got your characters with fairly normal-sounding names like Agatha Puricelli or Lydia Stanton. You know, names that actually sound like they could belong to a real person. Then you get the really cool-sounding names like Persephone Swan, or Sabella Stormsing, or Hippogriff Rose. And then you get some special names. Names like Michael Drippy. Or this kid named Huxsplutty Diamond. Huxsplutty. Huxsplutty. This game is a freaking troll. But then I encountered this poor bastard named Tony Bertzberger. Like, when his family decided on a surname, were vowels too much for them that day? Did they just name themselves after an epic sneeze? Bertzberger. Like, what the hell even happened here? But that name is nothing, and I mean nothing, compared to the time the game glitched out and gave me this gem of a character name. Open brackets en close brackets f underscore p underscore 149 open brackets en close brackets l underscore p underscore 149. Yeah, that one's gotta be my favorite. I call her brackets for short. This happened right around the time the game decided to make some shadows separate from the character models, and for the characters to react by just darting all over the map like a cat with a case of telekinetic zoomies. Restarting the game sorted that out, thankfully, but Dear Brackets was stuck. I feel really bad for her. Thankfully, I didn't experience any glitches beyond that one weird incident, but that doesn't mean the game doesn't have some areas where it could be improved. For instance, by the end of the game, I could accept 32 students at a time into my prestigious academy, but I could still only create 3 parties of 4 students each. You will never get more than 3 parties. Ever. Only 3 parties can ever be on errands or doing missions at any given time. Why? I don't know. There's no real reason why I can see that this would be the case. Thankfully, if you set up facilities in your school well enough, even the students who aren't in parties are still gaining some passive experience just by being accepted into the school. So by the time you graduate some students and make room in one of the parties, the newcomers usually have a good few levels on them, so they're not starting out at the very beginning. That can definitely offset things a bit, but I'd love it if there were some repeatable errands to send low-level parties of students on, so they can gain experience faster while I'm dealing with the story missions and harder stuff with more experienced high-level parties. It seems like that shouldn't be too much to ask, right? I mean, more repeatable missions in general would be nice, since, as I mentioned before, there are some difficulty spikes after a certain point, and a lack of good ways to gain experience and levels to properly face them. This game could benefit from a rebalancing, methinks. Honestly though, Valthirian Arc isn't really a bad game. It's got some solid management mechanics to it, and it manages to blend them fairly well with some hack-and-slash adventures and RPG elements. It's not the greatest game ever made, but it is a decently solid RPG management game, and you don't see a lot of those that aren't just weird little mobile games. Now, I'll grant you, some aspects of this might work better as a mobile game, where it's very easy to just put down your phone and go eat lunch or take a shower, and then come back to find that your parties have completed their 10-week-long errand, or gaining a lot of that passive experience from the school's facilities. Idling is much easier on a mobile than it is on a console. But still, what's here is pretty solid, and I had a good time playing it. A lot of the reviews for the game declare it to be fairly mediocre, very middle of the road, and I can't deny that they have a good point, because while it's pretty fun and decent, it also doesn't really excel at anything. It doesn't have anything that really sets it apart in the world of RPGs or management sims, except in the way it combines management with fantasy elements. That's pretty much it. The combat is fine, the world building is okay, the RPG mechanics are good, but nothing really makes it stand out. It's a good game, but once you beat it, you probably won't find yourself going, dang, I really wish I was playing Valthirian Arc Hero School Story again. But what was there was still decently fun. At least I thought so. Even if it wasn't amazing, I enjoyed most of my time playing it, and it kept me fairly entertained as I worked towards higher job classes and completing missions. Not the greatest game ever, but what's there is still pretty enjoyable, and it deserves having that said about it. Gotta say though, some of those reviews? No cute girls, and the story never makes sense. Seriously? No cute girls? That's one of your biggest complaints about the game. That is a noteworthy factor in you rating it so low? Well, I know where your priorities lie. Also, no cute girls. In this lineup of adorable anime-style models, there's not a single cute girl. None at all. I dare you to tell Amaya Nightblade to her face that she's not cute. Go ahead, tell her. She'll murder you with her cuteness. Hey, thanks for watching my review of Valthirian Arc Hero School Story. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought down in the comments, and if you've played this game before, please let me know what you thought of it too. I love hearing different takes on games. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot if you clicked that like button to let me know, and if you're not subscribed already, well, why the heck not? I got plenty of videos in my backlog for you to watch right now, and even more planned for the future, so if you don't subscribe, you might find yourself missing out on some awesome content. Feel free to follow me over on Twitter too, where you can find me talking about more games, random commentary about Canadian weather, and probably some anime stuff every now and again. Until next time, friends, stay safe and happy gaming.